right. For those that are welcoming us back, I mean, we've got a treat for you today here at PHLV Radio TV with the Alternative Wellness Show. I'm Kuya Steve, and with me, obviously, he's not actually here today, but Kuya G in the background here, as many of you already know. But we have a special treat. We have with us Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. Now, here's a man that has taken time out of his day. He's world renowned. Let me put it this way: he's taken some precious time to spend with us, so we can share with you, the viewer of our audience, information that what he does and what he's going to share with you can actually change your life. It's changed my life personally. It's changed people that I love and care about lives personally, and it's a special honor. But I'm going to read you some of his information, some of his background, so for those that are in the medical space, alternative health and wellness space, just give you an idea who he is if you haven't met him before. I've had the pleasure of actually meeting Mr. and Dr. Bryan in person, but he earned his undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry from the University of Texas at Austin. His doctoral degree from Louisiana State University School of Medicine in Shreveport, where he was the recipient of the Dean's Award for Excellence in Research. He pursued his postdoctoral training as a Kirstein Fellow at Boston University School of Medicine in the Whitaker Cardiovascular Institute. After a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in 2006, Dr. Bryan was recruited to join faculty at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston by Dr. Murad, Dr. Murad. The 1998 Nobel laureate in medicine of physiology. Now, Dr. Bryan has been involved in nitric oxide research for over the past 25 years and has made many seminal discoveries in the field. He's a successful entrepreneur, founder, chairman, and CEO of Bryan Therapeutics, privately held clinical stage biotech company, actively engaged in the discovery and development of nitric oxide-based therapies. BTI has active drug development programs in heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, and topical drugs for diabetic ulcer and non-healing wounds. So Dr. Bryan's consumer line of products are some of the most successful nitric oxide products on the market. He's an international leader in molecular medicine and nitric oxide biochemistry. So we do have a treat. Buckle up, for the next 30 or 40 plus minutes. If we go over, we may have to cut the show at the 30-minute line, but you can watch the full episode on PHLV Radio's YouTube channel as well. So welcome to the show, Dr. Bryan. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Yes. Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our honor, should I say, to have you. Let's talk. The first thing. Let's start with this because of time, right? How did you get involved in nitric oxide research, there, Dr. Bryan?
It was really when I was a student at LSU. A Nobel Prize had just been awarded for the discovery of nitric oxide, and it was a new and emerging field. I had a chance to meet Lou Ignarro, who had just won the Nobel Prize and came to Shreveport and gave a lecture and told us his story of discovery. And I was working under a pharmacologist at the time, had been in the nitric oxide field for the previous probably 20 years. And so that's what I kind of hung my hat on, because, then it was appreciated that it was the loss of nitric oxide that was really recognized as the earliest event in the onset and progression of chronic disease. And so the trick was, or the holy grail, even 25 years ago, was that if you could figure out how to safely and effectively deliver nitric oxide in an outpatient setting and develop product technology, it would change the world, because it addressed the root cause of most chronic diseases. So that got my attention, and here we are 25 years later.
So, and for the audience, and most don't know, and I didn't know until I was recommended to your products, actually, personally. I didn't know what it was. But what, in a nutshell, is nitric oxide?
Well, it's a gas. It's a gas. It's naturally produced in the body. It's what we call a signaling molecule, but it was first to be discovered to be a vasodilator. So what that means is when it's produced in the lining of the blood vessel, it relaxes the smooth muscle, it dilates the blood vessel, so now we can improve oxygen delivery, improve blood flow, circulation, normalize blood pressure, get more blood to organs and regions where it needs it, such as, during sexual activity, we can dilate blood vessels of the sex organs during, if we need to optimize our executive function or cognitive function, we can dilate blood vessels of the brain and perfuse those regions. If we're, starting to exercise, we can dilate the blood vessels of the heart, the skeletal muscle. But it's a signaling molecule, and now it's recognized that when you lose the ability to produce this molecule naturally, then that sets the stage for, all the inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction that we see in every single chronic disease.
Wow. Wow. Big question. How's nitric oxide involved in longevity, and disease prevention?
Well, I think that's what my kind of motive is. It's to change the conversation from reactive, because medicine is a reactive practice, right? And
Mm.
let's just
Hmm.
change the conversation. How do we be proactive? And we look at this through the lens of longevity. How do we live a longer, healthier, better life free of disease? And so for me, in the scientific literature, there's three primary measures of longevity. There's mitochondrial function, there's the mobilization of our own stem cells to repair and replace dysfunctional cells, and then there's the length of our telomeres, the ends of the chromosomes. And so shorter telomeres, shorter chromosomes, mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic disease, loss of stem cell function and mobilization, then we develop disease. And so nitric oxide is actually what controls all three of those. Nitric oxide activates the telomerase enzyme, prevents telomeres from getting shorter. It induces mitochondrial biogenesis and improves the efficiency of energy production in each cell in the body. And it's the molecule that tells our own stem cells to mobilize and differentiate. So if you can't make nitric oxide, you basically live a shorter life,
Mm.
burdened with disease. If we can maintain optimal nitric oxide levels production, then we can, live a longer, healthier life free of disease. And I think that should be everyone's goal.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm hearing from you, and not to say it's this, but I mean, it sounds to me like you name those three. It's like it's the fountain of youth, if you will, right?
Well, I
It's
think
part of that.
it's certainly the foundation.
Hmm.
We can't do anything about our chronological age, right, Steve? Because we all have a
Yeah.
birth date, but we have clinical data now where we can affect our biological age. So what
Yeah.
biological age compared to our chronological age? But yeah, I would consider it a fountain of youth because here's what we know: if without adequate nitric oxide, rapid aging, rapid disease onset and progression. With adequate nitric oxide, you can live a long life free of disease. And so if some people consider that the fountain of youth, I just call it a
Yeah.
foundational molecule for health,
Love it.
longevity, and human optimization because I think everybody should want to optimize their health, their performance in every aspect.
Love it. And, many of our listeners are in the medical field, but they're not taught the nutrition. They're not taught what what you're talking about. And so this is why, when I brought up this topic to our producers and those here at PHLV Radio, they said we would love to have the opportunity to have Dr. Bryan on. So how is it really produced in the body, nitric oxide? How does that happen?
Well, there's two primary pathways that we know of today. So the first one is this, and I talked about it a little bit. There's an enzyme found in our endothelial cells. And so the endothelial cells are the single layer of cells that line all blood vessels, the 60,000 miles of blood vessels we have in our body,
Wow.
right? So there's a single layer of endothelial cells. And so that enzyme, nitric oxide synthase, can produce nitric oxide in the blood vessels, dilates them, prevents plaque from sticking, prevents all the inflammation we see in the lining of the blood vessel. So it's the
Okay.
function of that enzyme that determines nitric oxide production. If the enzyme is broken and uncoupled, we call that endothelial dysfunction. It's the dysfunction of that nitric oxide synthase enzyme that leads to erectile dysfunction, high blood pressure, diabetes, insulin resistance. So that's the first. That enzyme is very important. Number two is from oral bacteria. So it comes from the food we eat, the presence of the bacteria, and then sufficient stomach acid production. So we have to
Hmm.
eat the right amount of foods, the types of foods. We have to have adequate bacteria and a diverse microbiome, and we must have stomach acid production. And so you can probably see where I'm going here. If you're eating a poor diet, you're using mouthwash, fluoride, or antacids, then you're completely shutting down nitric oxide production. And we've seen that clinically. People on proton pump inhibitors have a 40% higher incidence of heart attack, stroke, and Alzheimer's if they've been taking these drugs for more than 3 years. So that's the consequence of inhibition of nitric oxide production, heart attack, stroke,
Wow.
and Alzheimer's.
Wow. You know what you're saying. It's just, I mean, I know it's hitting home for some of our audience because a lot of them are on what you're talking about. And sometimes they say, well, that's what my, medical professional told me, right, that I
Yeah.
should be on. And so the approach we're taking, again, this show's about alternative wellness. I don't know if we just covered this, but once it's produced, nitric oxide, my question is, what does it normally do and what happens as it's, metabolized
Yeah.
there?
That was the trick for years, or the question, because once nitric oxide is produced, it's gone in less than a second, right? So the question was,
Mm,
how is this fleeting gas signaling and doing so many things? What's its target? Where does it go? What does it become? And what does it do? And really,
mm-hmm.
that was the work during my PhD, where we create a fingerprint of NO biology to where once it's produced, we could pick up these relevant metabolites and knew which ones were relevant for certain signaling and ones that were relevant for, kind of pathology or pathophysiology. But nitric oxide, it binds to other enzymes, basically metalloproteins, and activates what we call second messenger systems. So even
Mm-hmm.
though nitric oxide is around for only a short second, it activates these second messenger systems, which have longer health half-lives. So I always say if you've got a string of dominoes and at the very end is health, longevity, and optimization,
Mm-hmm.
nitric oxide is that first domino, right? So once you topple that first domino, everything else kind of takes in place. But in a nitric oxide is that first domino. Without that, nothing else happens. I mean, you can steer
Wow.
further downstream, but you're not going to optimize all those signaling pathways and second messengers until nitric oxide. But yeah, we discovered nitric oxide as a hormone back in 2007. So it can bind to the cysteine residue of glutathione and transport it as S-nitrosoglutathione. And so we can extend the biological half-life from 1 second out to tens of minutes and hours based on this creating this fingerprint of NO biology. And that's what, been very fortunate to figure this out over the past 25 years, but that's what makes us different than any other product company, drug company, even big pharma that's trying to make nitric oxide active drugs is they don't understand the biochemistry, they don't understand the physiology, and they don't understand what's gone in wrong with people who've lost the ability to produce nitric oxide. I'm fortunate to understand that because I discovered those. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 25 years.
That's huge. I mean, audience, for those that are, just the man that's speaking to you now that we have the pleasure to have on this show, he's the one that discovered this. So, I mean, prior to this, I mean, look, many of you have our Kababayan, our family. I mean, look, I've got probably about 70+% of my family's in the medical field, allopathic medical field, and they're actually tuning into this show. They wanted to hear this. And
Yeah.
so, Dr. Bryan, I know there's going to be a way for us to contact you. You'll probably have a ton of people reaching out to you and asking more and more and more. But let's go with some of these questions that I have because these are top questions that we said needed to be fielded. But what leads to the loss of enzymatic nitric oxide production? That endothelial dysfunction is what you'd mentioned, I think.
That's right. So we understand the rate limiting step in the function of that enzyme is it's oxidative stress, right? So oxidation is a loss of an electron. So there's things in our body that are stealing electrons and causing oxidation or rust. And so when we oxidize a molecule called tetrahydrobiopterin, then we change this redox ratio of BH4 to BH2. It leads to NOS uncoupling. And now that enzyme actually produces superoxide, which is a toxic oxygen radical instead of nitric oxide. So things like a high sugar diet, high carbohydrate diet, lack of physical exercise, the standard risk factors for development of cardiovascular disease all lead to NOS uncoupling. And then, just then the other pathway, if we focus on what's leading to the inhibition of the other pathway, it's, things that are disrupting the oral flora, fluoride in our toothpaste, fluoride in our municipal waters, using antiseptic mouthwash. 2 out of 3 Americans use mouthwash every day, killing the
Mm,
bacteria and inhibiting nitric oxide production, and we see their blood pressure going up. And not coincidentally, 2 out of 3 Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood pressure. So we've discovered over the past 15, 20 years that this isn't an association, it's causation. And so now we're
causation.
finding if you have normal intensive patients, you give them mouthwash, their blood pressure goes up. Now what we're doing is we're trying to target the oral microbiome through do a novel toothpaste that we just launched, and through an oral rinse that's targeting the microbiome, restoring the function of the microbiome, improving nitric oxide production. And now, simply by targeting the oral microbiome, we can start to normalize blood pressure in patients with resistant hypertension. Now, think about how profound that is on a global
That's
scale,
huge.
because high blood pressure is the number one driver of the number one killer of men and women worldwide. But yet 50% of the people that were given prescription drugs for their blood pressure don't respond with better blood pressure. And what we're finding is because the hypertension is a symptom of oral dysbiosis. So if we get rid of fluoride, if we stop using anything antiseptic, and we target the microbiome and now allow these good bacteria to repopulate, enhance nitric oxide production, blood pressure comes down. It's remarkable.
What you're saying is just blowing my mind. Absolutely. I'm sure it's blowing our audience's mind. But we're going to take a quick break, about a 30-second break, and we're going to, to acknowledge our sponsors, okay, for the show. And then we'll be right back, everyone, with Dr. Nathan Bryan. And you are in for a treat. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, we are back with Dr. Nathan Bryan. And for those that, if you missed the first part, go back and listen to the first part. I'm not going to intro everything. I mean, his list of credentials is out of this room. Okay, he travels worldwide. We were able to capture him and borrow just a few precious minutes with him. So please pay attention. We left off with the practices that people are doing and not knowing that what they're doing is actually harming their microbiome, is what you were talking about. So, which is the what is it, the toothpaste with the fluoride and all those different things. And so we won't go back into that. Let's go on, because I know your time is very, very precious. Are there certain other drug therapies here, Dr. Bryan, that can lead to loss of nitric oxide production, loss of that production?
Yeah, the ones that are most well elucidated and described are the proton pump inhibitors. These are completely inhibiting stomach acid production, preventing nitric oxide in the lumen of the stomach. They're leading to an inhibition of nitric oxide in the enzyme in the lining of the blood vessels. So those are the worst ones. The other things are, cholesterol lowering medication. If you get your cholesterol too low, really below 200, you start to affect the fluidity of the cell membrane, and you lose signal transduction. And you can see, there's people now, clear data showing that people who've been on cholesterol lowering medications have higher incidence of insulin resistance, diabetes, Alzheimer's, their mitochondrial toxicants, they're accelerating certain forms of cancers. So cholesterol is, number one, cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease, so it makes no sense to target it and treat it therapeutically. Number two, our body makes cholesterol. Why does our body make it? Because our body needs it. And so inhibiting the synthesis of cholesterol in the human body is a really, really bad idea. And so for me, it's always risk-benefit. What's the risk of lowering your cholesterol versus the benefit? What's the benefit? There is no benefit. Primary, secondary, tertiary prevention follows. There's no benefit of lowering your cholesterol. What's the risk? Oh, well, diabetes, Alzheimer's, some cancers, insulin resistance, decrease in nitric oxide production, demyelinization of your nerves, restless leg syndrome. So for me, that's an easy quotient. No benefit, all risk. You never take a cholesterol lowering medication. If your doctor tries to give you that, then fire your doctor and find somebody else.
I like what you're saying. Since they've come out, some of my research I've done will come out with all these lowering your cholesterol, talking about, across the board. Those other diseases that you just mentioned have just been skyrocketing.
That's exactly right.
Skyrocketing.
There's a clear explanation for it. Look, and most doctors and the so-called standard of care experts who create the standard of care don't want to hear that, because these drugs are making pharmaceutical companies billions and billions and billions of dollars every year. And they want to put everybody on a cholesterol lowering medication when the 50% of the people who have a heart attack have normal cholesterol. Those numbers right there should tell you that targeting cholesterol is not going to have an effect, and it doesn't. It makes people sicker.
Yeah, as soon as, and everyone that they talk about, these heart patients, they're always, you're prescribing these drugs left and right across the board, and it's actually doing more damage than it's actually helping. And what you're sharing, I mean, right? I mean, if a person really wants to have a conversation with you, they can contact your team, and obviously they can get all. And the beauty of this for the audience is this is all backed by science. We're talking with Dr. Nathan Bryan, and he is he's the founder of how this all happened. And so the biggest threat, so I'd have to say, right, there's got to be a threat to what you're doing in a sense, to the nitric oxide field and its advancement. What is that? And if we can, share with our audience, what's going on and why would they not? Again, I think it's obvious, but let's just make it clear why they don't want you to do what you're doing in a sense.
Well, look, what we're doing is extremely disruptive. And I spent 20 years in academia, teaching in medical schools, training future physicians, and doing research in academic institutions. And so the standard is we create a target, right? We find a target, we synthesize a drug against that target, we patent it, and then we go through FDA indication, and we go for an indication, and that drug treats a symptom. But what we're doing, that's called pharmacology, right? You develop drugs that inhibit certain biochemical reactions. What we do is completely different. We utilize concepts of restorative physiology, right? So we understand the mechanism of disease to the extent that we can develop rational therapies. Now, I've just been fortunate to spend the past 25 years in studying nitric oxide, so we know how the human body makes it, we know what goes wrong in people that have lost the ability to make it, and we know how to fix it. So when you do this, when you focus on restorative physiology, now for the first time in the history of Western medicine, a patient and a physician can actually have a conversation of how do we get off drugs? How do we get off prescription medication? Because up until now, it was like, take this drug, if it doesn't come back, I'll give you another drug, and then you look up, you're 50 years old and on 15 different medications. And the body cannot perform that way. So now, and medicine is a business, right? It's a for-profit business, the world's largest business enterprise in the world, multi-trillion-dollar annualized global industry. And the number one rule of any for-profit business is get as many customers as you can and keep that customer as long as you can and extract the lifetime value out of that and the share of wallet as long as you can. So now if something comes out like what we're doing with nitric oxide, you restore a fundamental foundational molecule, we get people off blood pressure medicine. Now their risk of heart attack, stroke goes down. There's no need for cholesterol lowering medication because, that's a completely different study. And then you start to, the body starts to work again. And that's disruptive. And so people don't like what we're doing, and then I have competitors out there who've sued me because I basically show that their products don't work because, number one, they don't understand the science, and number two, even if they do, they're deceptively and fraudulently marketing these products that they not only do they not work, they can't work. And so, what we're doing is extremely disruptive. And, I've had people try to take me out and pay me a lot of money to go away, but I'm very blessed and fortunate at this stage to where I can't be bought. We're doing this. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to change the world, to get nitric oxide product technology in every major market segment around the world. And I'm going to do it no matter what it takes.
That is one of the biggest reasons why, it's such a blessing for us and our audience to have you on, because we believe in those folks, and whenever they come on, they have to back it with science, actual evidence, and but they just can't do it that way as well. I mean, they also have to be people of highest honesty, integrity, and transparency, which you've always brought to the table. In my discussions with you, I actually found out about you from one of my alternative wellness doctors, and so you're highly, highly respected in this space. So as we go forward, how do consumers and physicians, for those that are physicians watching this, how do they find a nitric oxide product that actually, I'd go to you, but how do they find one that would actually, I know yours works, so I don't want to say one that works, but maybe I guess that is the question. How do they find, the nitric oxide product that's going to work for them?
Well,
competitors.
It's very difficult. It's been challenging, and it's kind of the source of my daily frustration because I don't watch TV, but, I hear it on the radio, and when I'm in airports or something, I see TV commercials coming on. They're marketing you a nitric oxide product. through beets or through other similar mechanisms. And so, number one, beets, typically 99% of the beet products on the market provide no benefit for nitric oxide. We don't have time to get into the mechanism of why that is, but beets are basically, it's a marketing ploy. And then there's other products out there that contain arginine or citrulline, but if the enzyme isn't working, then your body can't make nitric oxide out of those. But
Wow.
in the supplement space, everybody says the same thing. So the challenge is, how does a consumer, how does a physician know? So what I tell people is, look, is the company based on science? Is the guy involved in the company formulating the products ever published a paper in the medical literature, scientific literature? Is he a scientist? Is he a medical professional? Has he done any research? Most of these people just hire these talking heads who, would probably have a hard time spelling NO, if it weren't right there in front of them. But you look for validation. And what we do is, if we detect nitric oxide coming off our products. Again, nitric oxide's a gas. If your body can't make it, then we got to do it for you. But all of our products, I take a nitric oxide gas phase analyzer, and if it's not producing nitric oxide for your body, independent of your microbiome, your endothelial function, then we don't bring it to market. And then we test, we give it to you, we pull blood, we measure your plasma, we monitor your blood pressure, we look at multiple endpoints. And then if we're doing what nitric oxide does, then our products are working. And then unfortunately, all these competitive products, we put it through the same test, and it doesn't move the needle. In fact, many of these products make people worse.
Wow.
And so you have to be careful about what you're doing, because there are a lot of good companies out there selling a lot of really good products that are based on science. But, taking vitamin D or vitamin C or magnesium is much simpler than trying to create products with nitric oxide. So, I just ask that if you're interested in nitric oxide, come to us, because we know what we're doing. And the reason I say that is not to be egotistical, but because if we don't tell the truth, then these companies could kill the entire industry. And the best example is, I've been getting these emails for the past 10, 15 years. Nathan, you talk about nitric oxide, how it improves blood flow and circulation, normalize blood pressure, support all this stuff. And I've taken this nitric oxide product, and it didn't do anything for me. My blood pressure didn't get better. My energy levels didn't get better. I didn't feel any different. So nitric oxide doesn't work for me. And I go, whoa, that's the absolute worst interpretation you could ever make. Nitric oxide always works. Now, that company didn't work for you. That product didn't work for you. So now we have to distinguish and discriminate between real science versus deceptive, fraudulent marketing. So the companies out there spending the most money on advertising and marketing typically have the poorest science. Because if you got good science and the product works, when people try our products, they take it, they like it, they continue to buy it because it works. So I don't need to spend money on advertising. I can just get this in the hands of people, and it works for them. Products that don't work, you have to continue to spend ad, because people buy it once, they never buy it again. So you have to go out and buy a new customer, And that's the churn you see. And those are the commercials from the companies that are spending the money because their products don't work.
You're exactly 1,000% right. Since I started utilizing, the nitric oxide that you've actually formulated, I've always told people about it. I've always told people. I mean, that's the best form of advertisement, obviously, is word of mouth. You're right. You don't have to advertise, right? Because the quality is there. Companies with quality products that are actually effective and they work, you're not going to see advertisements. Unfortunately, the advertisements we see, for those that watch TV, I turned it on the other day, and my goodness, I don't know how many. It's even on the cable channels, are the advertisements, right? All of the the pharmaceuticals, and I'm not trying to knock the pharmaceutical industry, but I'm saying, look, for those that are interested in actual wellness, you need to really understand what it is that you're seeing. But as we're getting ready to wrap up, let's we're going to be listing your information. People can contact us, and we can give them the information, but it's going to be right here on the interview as well. Your contact methods. But how do you see the future of medicine evolving, and the role of nitric oxide? What's going forward? Because you've done this for 25 years in this industry. So, and again, you look very young. for 25 years. Most people 25 years in the industry of any type of, the traditional side, they don't look like you. They don't, I mean, you're full of energy and you travel the world globally.
Yeah.
I mean, we love that. So what do you see for the future here, doctor?
Well, I'm a product of the product. I practice what I preach. I travel 160,000 air miles a year, stay in over 200 hotels nights a year. But I practice what I preach. But no, look, the future of medicine is dependent upon nitric oxide, and that's our primary focus at Bryan Therapeutics, where we're developing nitric oxide product technology into drug therapy. We've been very successful in the dietary supplement space. We've got a skincare line of products that produce nitric oxide for skincare and beauty. We've got an oral line of products that we're developing out for oral care and optimal nitric oxide production. But really, my motive for the past 25 or 30 years is to understand the mechanism of disease to the extent that we can fix it and develop rational drug therapy. And that's what we're doing. We've got a nitric oxide drug for ischemic heart disease. We've got a drug we're working on for Alzheimer's, which I'm absolutely convinced our nitric oxide drug will eradicate, cure, treat, prevent Alzheimer's disease, because Alzheimer's is a vascular metabolic disease. Nitric oxide addresses the vascular phenotype and the metabolic phenotype of Alzheimer's. The focal ischemia, the insulin resistance, diabetes type 3, they call it. Nitric oxide completely addresses that. And then we're developing a topical drug for diabetic ulcers, non-healing wounds. 65,000 Americans die every year in nursing homes from wounds that get infected and become septic. And we've treated wounds for the same way for the past 50 years. Negative pressure, hyperbaric oxygen. There is a better way, and we're moving that through the FDA. So I think I know when we get our drugs approved and on the market, and now allopathic doctors can write a prescription for a safe drug that addresses the underlying root cause of the indication, it's going to change the world, and we're going to lead the way.
Love that. As we wrap up, just because of the time, what you're saying is not just motivational; it's inspirational. You said some diseases here. You mentioned them. I mean, Alzheimer's. Our loved ones out there. Who wants your loved one to suffer from Alzheimer's? Ischemic heart disease. You talked about, and then you talked about the bruising. Diabetic bruise. I mean, what you're saying, people that are watching this, they know in real time they can look at their loved one. I'm sure some of them can look at their loved ones right now and go, "Oh my gosh, where in the world have you been, Dr. Bryan?"
Yeah.
We need
hang on, be patient.
Yes, and we love it. And so let's just end with this, okay? And we appreciate your time so much. Our PHLV audience, whether they're here local in Vegas or nationwide or even worldwide, or maybe in in Asia and the Philippines, right? We want to know a little bit more because I'm sure we're gonna want to follow you even more. We'll put your Instagram following, so we'll promote that as well on the show when we do the final takes. But what is the vision or goals of your company that you'd want to leave the audience with, and then we'll end it with that.
To develop safe and effective product technologies in every major category around the world, because nitric oxide will change the world. It is changing the world, and our mission is to lead the way, and we're leading based on science. Science is leading our direction for product development and drug development. We're not profit driven. Our philosophy is if you do the right thing, the cash register rings. But we're not out there building this to make money. We're doing it to really, we have a very, a unique opportunity, and the timing is now, the landscape is right. And so that's our goal, is to, deliver to people all around the world, because they deserve, look, the science is very clear. We understand the mechanism and root cause of every single major age-related chronic disease. And now we have drug therapy that we can do that. And the old way isn't working, so there's a new way forward. It's not pharmacology, it's called restorative physiology, and those are the principles in which we operate.
That's wonderful. So for those that don't want to wait to maybe you want to jump off right now, you can go to drnathansbryan.com. That's Dr. Nathan, S is in Sam, Bryan, BRYAN.com, BryanTherapeutics.com, or his Instagram at Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. So we're going to put all this information here. Dr. Bryan, thank you. Thank you.
Just let me no, thank you. Let me just give you a plug for my latest book. It's called The Secret of Nitric Oxide: Bring the Science to Life. This tells the whole story. This is a must read, and it tells the story of nitric oxide, what it is, what it does, kind of my personal journey of discovery. But you can get this at nathansbook.com or Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere books are sold. But this is a must read. And then I would also encourage people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where we're always putting the latest information, education information. It's Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Nitric Oxide on YouTube. Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Nitric Oxide on YouTube. All right. So, I can go on and on and on. And I know, I've got so many questions to ask you just on personal things. I know our audience has, personal things to ask you. But I'm just going to, we'll close this out for now. We are very, very thankful. We feel blessed that you've just been able to share, in just 30 plus minutes, information that comes from, it's not from your mouth for profit. It's your mouth for the passion of helping people and changing the world. We're all about that. And, so for our audience, please reach out to us. If you have any questions, you can reach us here at the station, phlvradio.tv. Or .com, and we look forward to seeing you on another episode of Alternative Wellness Show with Kuya Steve and Kuya G, Kuya Gilbert, that is, and Dr. Nathan Bryan again. Thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful and blessed day, sir. Safe travels. Thank you. Very much.